Before we get in today's video, I just wanted to let you know that a lot of you had asked in previous videos that I've done for an audio track for the videos where I'm just sitting down and talking and sharing different topics that are either channeled messages or they are just topics that you have asked for information on. Like a lot of people have been asking for information on light workers lately, which I plan to do. So there is a video, which like this content, but there is just the audio track for this available to you now on my podcast, Authentic and Unapologetic. That's all this podcast is just the audio files from the video content. So that way, if you have to get up and move around about your day, I thought that, instead of having to carry YouTube on your phone around with you to listen to things, you could just pop in the podcast. It will be available everywhere that you listen to your favorite podcasts. So links for that are down below, and let's get into the video. Hi friends, and welcome back. Today I want to talk to you about how people have lied to you. Because have you ever heard that phrase, oh, just grow up, or grow up, or can't you just grow up? Can't you just be more adult? Why can't you be like so-and-so? And I'm here to tell you that those people have lied to you, because growing up is, it's not fun. I mean, look at people in even films. Don't even necessarily look at your personal life, but I feel like a lot of times adulthood in some of the biggest drama films, they always have a hard, miserable time. And I feel like to someone that is being told grow up, that is such a massive insult. But I'm going to sit here and actually debunk to you today why you shouldn't listen to those people, why they have it all wrong, and why you should keep that childlike innocence in your life, because it is probably one of the most important things that is going to keep you living a longer, happier, more fulfilled life. So first and foremost, we talked about this a little bit in, I think, the last podcast episode, and that is, who said it, can you relate to them, and do you actually trust their judgment? Because here's the thing. I want you to think of someone, and I'm sure as you started listening to this podcast, or if you clicked on it from the title, there is a podcast to this as well as a video. So if I say podcast or video, apologies, there's both. There will be a link in the description to either or, depending on how you want to listen to it. So I feel like you clicked on this because you honestly feel like someone in your life has said that to you and you probably got offended, or you're someone who has said it to someone else. And this podcast episode is for both of you. Now, I am the youngest of 7 kids. I would be lying to you if nobody in my life had ever told me to grow up. And I would be lying to you if I told you I didn't take high offense to that at the time. And what I want you to do for me now, and I'll do it with you, and I'll probably talk a little bit about my experience as well, is whoever has said this to you, or if you've said it, think about yourself or another person. Think about that person that said this thing to you. And I feel like first I'm really going to address if you've been told this by someone else or insulted with this. I'm going to address you guys first. And think about how this person lives their life. Think about what they do. Do you think that they're successful? Do you admire the way that they live their life? Do you want what they have for your life? And if so, oh my goodness, maybe it's time to grow up. However, if you don't admire the way that they live and you're not going where they're going, why are you taking advice from them? They've clearly got it all wrong. If you don't admire the way that they live their life. Now, if it's you who has said this to someone else, we're going to kind of take this a step farther. And if you've actually said this to somebody else, said, oh my gosh, can't you just grow up? I want you to ask yourself, why is it so important that you try to control somebody else's outcome in their life? Because that's ultimately what this is about. When somebody says, just grow up, the thing is they're taking their life history, their experiences, and to them, you look like you're someone that just isn't as responsible as they are. And what they're actually saying to you, and what you're actually saying, if you're the person who has said this, is, I know better for you in your life. I know better, even though I'm going to tell you a secret. You don't, because you haven't walked a mile in that person's shoes. And even if you feel like you know somebody so well, I don't care if you lay down with them at night and you feel like you know your significant other or a family member or a friend. I don't care if you feel like you know every single little thing about them, like you are better than the FBI stalking their life. You will never actually know them. And this is a truth across the board with any person in your life. You will never completely know another person. And I know that feels kind of unsettling, but it's the truth, because we aren't in each other's minds. We don't know how the other person thinks, how the other person feels, how their body reacts. And if you've met the person later in life or at any point, you don't know what their trauma language is. You don't know everything that they've been through that has made them be who they are today. And that goes both ways. Like I said, that's every person across the board. You will never know someone completely, ever. That you can't. It is literally impossible until we gain the ability to literally put ourselves inside of other people, and not sexually. But until we gain the ability to literally put ourselves inside of someone else, there is absolutely no way to know that. And so what you're really saying, or what the person who has said this to you is really saying, is that they know better. And this is really unfortunate. And I talk about this a lot on my channel because I am somebody who is a product of a family that definitely has done that. And I say family because ultimately, I never make my videos or my podcasts or my content to out people in my life. That's never the goal, ever. In fact, I feel like that would hurt me if I felt like I had done that to someone. But I can only really talk about the things that I have experienced. And I feel like for me, family in my adult life has probably been the biggest learning lesson. I've had to learn a lot about the belief structures that my family holds and how I don't really agree with them. And it's not personal. It's just how I choose to live my life. And so I've been told, let's take this on a personal level now. I've been told, gosh, by a few members of my own family, and I feel like even some in-laws. I apologize if any of my in-laws are watching this. I feel like they watch my content more than my actual blood-related family does. I've been told this a few times, or at least been in proximity where it's being said that they're telling somebody to grow up. And I feel like for me, it's this moment of, before I would take that so personally. And I would be like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing life right. I'm not as adult as this person. I don't have my shit together. And it's honestly a very defeating thing to say to someone. Because again, you're saying, I know better. I know better for you than you do. And nobody knows you better than you do. So it's, from the outsider's perspective, it can seem like you need to grow up. But frankly, we're not here to control how other people live their lives. We're not. Even if you're a parent, you're not here to control how your kid, you can do so much, but ultimately, depending on the kind of child you have, they're going to do what they want anyways. It's funny. My mother actually told me that when I was an adult. She was like, or when I got old enough, I guess, to not be under her roof, she was like, the secret that they never tell you about kids is they actually can do whatever they want. They just believe that they can't. And I was like, damn, that's some serious, yeah, there might be some consequences that you're going to suffer. I'm not telling you to go out there and be this huge rebel and do all these things that are going to get you in trouble. Please don't do that. But kids can actually do whatever they want. And honestly, I think in my life, I live my life in a very childlike fashion. I don't play as much video games, I feel like, as I used to. I think there is this weird consensus in the world that video games are a child's thing to do, when we have adults that have made millions playing video games, and it really is a career at this point. But I feel like video games are still perceived as a child hobby, even though I think if more people played video games, more people would be chilled out. I don't play as much video games as I used to, but I also don't have kids, and I'm almost 30 years old. I have no plans at this time to have children. I don't want them. I feel like that could be something down the line that maybe I would be open to, but I have no reason to stress about it. If it never happens, it never happens. Like I don't feel the urgency to do that because it's not where my life is, you know? And I also feel like if I really wanted kids, I would just get a dog. Like, no offense to children. I hope if you're a child, you're not listening to this podcast because it's probably not for you. But I feel like, there is this, I don't follow the norm. I choose to live my life in a much more independent fashion. I don't work a 9-to-5 job, though I would argue that I actually work more than my significant other who does work a 9-to-5. I feel like to an outsider's perspective, it looks like all I do is eat, wear sweatpants, and play video games all day, when in reality, there's so much more to my life that goes into everything I do. Like I said, some days I work 18-hour days, and some days I just say, you know what, I don't have enough fucks to give today. I'm out of them, and so I'm going to do what I want to do. And frankly, I think to an outsider perspective, without seeing every little detail that goes into my life daily, I could see why somebody would feel like I need to grow up. And on top of that, I feel like for myself, and this gets a lot more personal, I've never really felt truly financially stable as an adult. Even when money was in crazy excess coming into this house, which we've definitely had that opportunity before. We've had to get a little bit stricter over the last few years as things have changed in my business. But I feel like I could definitely see also why sometimes my phone will just be suspended because I can't pay it. And I could see where somebody else would have the opinion of oh my God, can you just get it together and grow up already? Or if opinions differentiate, I don't even want to get into the generational split, because especially in my family, it gets very personal. I am technically from the millennial generation, and in my own family, because there are so many kids, we technically have, I want to say it's Gen X, and we have boomers, if you include my parents. So we have 3 technical generations that happened in my family line, and there is definitely a lot of discordance in that. I see the world through such a different lens, being raised on the internet and, not being able to easily afford things like a house or a car, and where for the boomer generation, things like that were expected and it was easier. And like I said, I don't want to sit here and get into the whole generational stuff. I think it would be fun to do an episode where I talk about the astrology of generations, because that shit is fascinating. I could study generational astrology for the rest of my life and probably be very content with that. But my main focus is I've had these things said to me. I've been offended by them. I've been hurt by those opinions. But what I fully had to come to understand is I had to kind of flip it on its head and be well, do I like the way this person lives their life? And though it doesn't concern me, it's not my, they can live how they want to live. That's up to them. It's not a judgment. Do I actually like how that person's day-to-day looks? Do I ever want to be that busy in that way? Do I ever want to, run my life like that? And no, frankly, I don't. I actually love my life, truly. I can honestly tell you, though it's not where I see myself down the line yet, I definitely am living out my dreams. 110%. My time is my time. I get to create how I want to. I have full creative and to some degree financial freedom in everything that I do. And I love the way that I live. Yeah, it can kind of be by the seat of my pants sometimes. It can kind of be risky and a little bit scary at certain times because certain things are uncertain. Everything isn't always certain in my life, but I love living in an uncertain reality. I don't like certainties. And honestly, when things get too rigid and too stuck, like I need to take a risk and do something else because I don't like complacency and I don't like routine. I don't like repetition. I can't wake up every day and do the same thing, or I'm bored out of my mind with life. So for me, I feel like I do kind of have this attitude of riding by the seat of my pants a little bit. And I could see why somebody who lives a much more structured, rigid life would tell me I need to grow up. But another point I want to make is telling you to grow up it's a lie, because every time that you experience like massive joy, like massive, like I'm talking like you're peeing your pants, you're laughing so hard. Think about how a child actually acts when they're happy. They don't have a care in the world. They are so happy with their life. And it's just like this joyous, like I think about the first time like a baby starts to like laugh from their gut, because it's different than when they laugh when they're like really little, and it gets like more and more, right? So like losing that childlike essence of yourself to me is the destruction of humanity. Like when we become too hard on ourselves, we don't play, we don't act like the children that we all actually are. What is even the point if you can't experience joy on that level? What is the point? So letting your inner child out every once in a while, or all the time, or however you choose to live your life, there's nothing wrong with that. I think children actually do it correctly. They actually live life correctly. They live life in a way that is no rules, always fun, always something to do, never bored. Like, you know, they're just out there exploring and looking and seeing what life actually has to offer. What can I learn today? Even if that's not the mentality they have, especially at like really young ages, they're just sponges. They're picking up everything. They're learning and growing, and they're fascinated by everything. And wouldn't it be so lovely to just continue to live like that for the rest of your life? I don't know. Maybe it's because I have too much mutable energy in my astrology chart. I feel like I could live the rest of my life that way and be so happy just exploring the universe. And eventually I hope I get to travel the world. That's like the ultimate goal. Just being joyous, traveling the world and playing. So I feel like that's like a really big takeaway for me, is think about how children actually live, and why would you want to grow up? Like, if that's the case, like, growing up is a lie. It is a lie that we all sell ourselves on, that being an adult is so cool and so much more fun. And like, when you're an adult, it's not really that fun. You have work and bills and sometimes kids and a mortgage. And it's not that those things are bad. They are things that we are able to do, have, be, or obtain to support us. But ultimately, it gets away from the point, which is experiencing love and joy. So don't grow up. Stay a kid. Don't let them lie to you. And don't listen to people that want to make it seem like that you need to become who they are. Like, I really want you to remember that, if nothing else. Look at how that person lives their life and ask yourself if that's how you want to live your life. Because at least for myself, every single person that has ever said that to me, I'm always like, ugh, I'm so happy I don't have your life. I'm much more happy with the one that I'm living. And that's the beautiful thing, is there are, like 8 billion people on the planet, something like that. Every single one of them has the opportunity to live life on their own terms. It's a choice. And so don't fall into the trap. Don't fall into the trap of growing up. Stay young as Billy Madison would say. I think it's in Billy Madison. Stay young as long as you can. But apologies if this episode was kind of all over the place. I had like a few little keynotes that I wanted to fit in there, but this one was kind of a looser plan. So I hope my word dump just like made sense. But it's a little bit of a shorter episode today as well, but just, do something today that brings you joy, and don't do it because you think it's going to look cool or somebody else is going to respect you for doing it. Do it because it genuinely brings you joy, and that's it. And don't grow up, and don't listen to people who tell you to grow up. I love you so, 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 so much, and I will see you again real soon.